Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our iOS development tutorial series using UIKit. And in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can support multiple sections in a UITableView using a UITableView diffable data source. Now, in the previous video, we took a look at diffable data sources using a UITableView and collection view and all that, right? In the previous videos, we did all that. Well, there are certain things that aren't exactly done for you when it comes to diffable data sources, right? So, for example, while you can split your data into sections using a diffable data source and all of that, and that does work just fine, you can't, for example, add headers or footers to those sections with just a UITableView diffable data source on its own. You have to subclass you have to subclass the diffable data source in order to make that happen. That same thing goes for swipe to delete functionality or anything else that you need to do with your data source that isn't counting the number of sections or the number of rows in your data source for your table. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can subclass UITableView diffable data source to achieve the goal of not only separating your data into multiple sections, but also adding headers to header titles to each section. From there, you can figure out how to add footer labels, how to do swipe to delete functionality, that sort of thing. In another video, I will show you how to do the swipe to delete functionality, but my challenge to you after this video is figure out how to perform swipe to delete functionality on your own. That's going to be my challenge today for you. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we need to do inside of Xcode is to create a class that will inherit from UITableView diffable data source. So we're going to go ahead and go into our navigator, not our issue navigator. We want the project navigator. So I'm going to say empty file, and we'll call this locations diffable data source. All right. So now inside of this class, what we're going to do, or inside of this file rather, we're going to import UIKit, and then we're going to create a class definition. The class definition I have in my pasteboard. It looks like this. So because I just copy pasted something into this file, let's go ahead and take a look at what this even is and how it works. So this class definition is, for the most part, in fact, almost entirely, pasted from the UITableView diffable data source class definition. So the first thing we're doing is we're importing UIKit, which is necessary. All right. And then what we're doing here is we are creating a class called locations diffable data source. This class takes in the same generic type parameters that the UITableView Diffable data source takes in. It primarily a section identifier and a section identifier type, right? So section and item identifier types. Then we are having it inherit from UITableView Diffable data source with those typed parameters passed to it as well. And then we have a few where clauses. These are more advanced topics for generics. So if we take a look here, let's see, we can see. So this basically says that the item and section types must conform to sendable and hashable. That's pretty much all these where clauses are saying, which are the exact requirements for the UITableView Diffable data source. All right. So inside of our class, we can then override title for section at, I think, title for header in section. Now, if we take a look at the method signature for this, what it does is it takes in a table view, so the table view that we want to modify, right? Or the table view that's calling the method. Then we are retrieving, or we're getting passed in the section, which is the index of the section in your data source. And then we're returning an optional string. So if you don't want to return anything for a specific section, you can do that. Now let's go ahead and inside of the body, we will say switch section, like that. And in here we'll have three cases. We'll have case 0, case 1, and default. Now, the reason why I'm doing it this way is because we will have two sections in this table. One for national parks, and then a second for monuments. And then the default case is to make sure that we satisfy the requirements of a switch statement, that it must be exhaustive. And in the default case, we will return nil. So we'll say case 0. We want to return. Let's say monuments. So the first section will be monuments. Case 1, return national parks. Like that. And then default, we will return nil. Just like that. And that's it. Right? That's how we can add titles to our section headers in a Diffable data source. Now let's actually implement those sections, which is as simple as adding another case to our section enum. Then we need to append both sections that we're creating, and then append specific items to those specific sections that they belong to. And this subclassing step isn't strictly necessary, right? So if you don't need titles for your headers or your footers in your table view, you don't have to subclass a UITableView Diffable data source. You can just leave that alone if your design calls for that. Otherwise, you will have to subclass it. All right, so now inside of our view controller extension, what we'll do first is go all the way up here. That is absolutely not my extension. Xcode, give me the right file. There we go. Okay. Up at the top of our extension here, we'll get rid of UITableView control or UITableView Diffable data source and replace it so we'll say instead of UITableView Diffable data source, it'll be locations diffable data source. We'll keep our snapshot type alias the same. Now we'll get rid of our case main here, and we'll change it to parks and monuments, like that. And no changes really need to be made inside of make data source, other than if you're not using a type alias, right? To make sure that you change the type that you're initializing. But because we're using a type alias to make our code a little bit more readable and less verbose, we don't need to make any changes. Now, inside of our apply snapshot method, here's where we need to make some changes. First, we need to change the append sections call. So instead of main, we'll have monuments and dot parks, like that. And then, instead of just appending all the items in one go, what we'll do is we'll create two arrays of... We'll separate our landmarks array into filtered arrays based on the category. So let monuments equals landmarks dot filter $0 dot category is equal to monument, and then let parks is equal to landmarks dot filter $0 dot category equals dot national park. All right. So once we've done that, we can then say snapshot dot append items, and then we'll say monuments to, we want append that to the monument section. Then, after that, we can say snapshot dot append items, and we'll say parks to the dot parks section. And then finally, make sure you apply that the snapshot to the data source, and we should be good to go. Let's save this and run our code. And here is our app. you can see we have two distinct sections where the header, the title of the header for the first section is Monuments, and inside of this section we have Statue of Liberty, we have Washington Monument, we have the Lincoln Memorial, and we have Mount Rushmore. The second section has a title of National Parks, and inside of this section we have Yellowstone National Park, Yosemite National Park, Grand Canyon National Park, and Acadia National Park. So that pretty much does it for this video on how we can separate our table views into separate sections, and how we can subclass UITableView Diffable data source to include titles for those sections. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video where we will be covering the same topic except with UI Collection View Diffable data source. So see you then.